This is breaking news. Federal government reveal names of terrorism financiers. The Nigerian Sanctions Committee on Monday revealed the identities of 9 specific individuals and 6 entities that have been recommended for sanction following their involvement in terrorism financing. The 9 individuals under sanctions are 1. Tukur Mamu, Yusuf Ghazali, Muhammad Sani, Abubakar Muhammad, Salamuddin Hassan, Adamu Ishak, Hazana Oiza Isa, Abdul Karim Musa, and Omar Abdullahi. The 6 BDCs and firms are West and East Africa General Trading Company Limited, Settings Bureau de Change Limited, G-Side General Enterprises, Desert Exchange Ventures Limited, Eagle Square General Trading Company Limited, and Alpha Exchange BDC. Top of the list of individuals named in the document was a Kaduna-based publisher, Chukuru Mamu, who is currently being tried by the federal government for allegedly aiding the terrorists who attacked the Abuja-Kaduna train in March 2022. According to the document sent to reporters, Mamu participated in the financing of terrorism by receiving and delivering ransom payment over the sum of $200,000 in support of ISWAP terrorists for the release of hostages of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack. The document said one of the individuals is the suspected attacker of the St. Francis Catholic Church, Owo, Ondo State on June 5th, 2022, and the Kuje Correctional Center, Abuja on July 5th, 2022. Another was described as a financial carrier of ISWAP Okene. She is responsible for the disbursement of funds to the widows, wives of the terrorist fighters of the group. According to the document, another of the individuals in 2015 transferred 60 million naira to terrorism convicts. He was also said to have received a sum of 189 million naira between 2016 and 2018. The same person is said to own entities and business reported in the UAE court judgment as facilitating the transfer of terrorist funds from Dubai to Nigeria. Another was said to have a total inflow of 61.4 billion naira and a total outflow of 51.7 billion naira from his account. The document further revealed that in accordance with Section 54 of the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022, institutions and individuals are required to immediately identify and freeze without prior notice all funds, assets, and any other economic resources belonging to the designated persons and entities in your possession and report same to the Sanctions Committee. Report to the Sanctions Committee any assets frozen or actions taken in compliance with the prohibition requirements. Immediately file a suspicious transactions report to the NFIU for further analysis on the financial activities of such an individual or entity, and report as a suspicious transactions report to the NFIU all cases of name matching in financial transactions prior to or after receipt of this list. It said the freezing obligation required is to freeze all funds or other assets that are owned or controlled by the designated persons and entities, and not only those that are tied to a particular act, plot, or threat or terrorism finances. Those funds or other assets that are wholly or jointly owned or controlled directly or indirectly by designated persons or entities. The funds or other assets derived or generated from funds or other assets owned or controlled directly or indirectly by designated persons or entities, and funds or other assets of persons and entities acting on behalf or at the direction of designated persons or entities. This means every account, every asset, jointly or wholly controlled by these persons that have been indicted, should be freezed. This giant stride by the president is commendable, and this should be the first time that names have been mentioned by the government, calling out those who sponsor terrorism, naming them and their companies, and freezing their account. The last we had was Saudi Arabia giving some names as people who sponsor terrorism in Nigeria. But now the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu has made history as it publishes the names of the people who sponsor and finance terrorism. We have Tuku Mamuru, who has been indicted before. Now his name is appearing again. Somebody says all the 9 names have something in common. Religion. You would notice that it is the same region that has been staging sentimental protests against Tinubu's led government. He says, Africa, wake up. Nigeria, wake up. May Bola Ahmed Tinubu succeed. In another news, the president has banned ministers, head of agencies, other government officials from embarking on public-funded foreign trips for 3 months from April 1st, 2024. Tinubu added that government officials who intend to go for any public-funded international trip must seek and get presidential approval at least 2 weeks prior to embarking on any such trip, which must be deemed absolutely necessary. The president must approve of any minister that is going to travel out of the country, and that minister must give at least 2 weeks prior notice. Another breaking news, the Central Bank of Nigeria has settled all FX backlog as external reserves rise to $34.11 billion. The Central Bank of Nigeria has cleared the $7 billion foreign exchange backlog inherited by Governor Yemi Cardoso. In a statement on Wednesday, CBN's acting director of corporate communications, Mrs. Hakama Sidi Ali, confirmed settlement of all valid FX backlog claims. The CBN, she said, employed Deloitte Consulting, an independent auditing firm, to meticulously assess the transactions, ensuring that only legitimate claims were honored. Any invalid transactions were referred to the relevant authorities for further investigation, she stated. There is also another milestone by the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as at 30th June 2023, total public debt stock was $113.42 billion. External and domestic stood at 87.38 trillion naira in the second quarter of 2023. The debt stock was 49.85 trillion naira, which is 108.30 billion US dollars. Nigeria owing World Bank $14.51 billion as at June 30th, 2023. Now, debt per capita, that means what each Nigerian is owing when you split the money among probably 250 million Nigerians, 396,376.19 kobo. That is from the National Bureau of Statistics. Nigeria's debt to China increased from 3.93 billion US dollars as at June 2022 to 4.73 billion US dollars in June 2023, showing an increase of $800 million in only 1 year. GDP second quarter of 2023 stood at 52.1 trillion Nigerian naira, around 66.84 billion US dollars. The nation was technically insolvent in June 2023. Quick but painful, strong but focused intervention by the president had to be made to avert an economic disaster of unimaginable proportion. The president had no luxury of time for other alternatives. Subsidy withdrawal and floating the Naira are two major policy instruments which over time will help the nation reset itself. However, the CBN has to do more to stabilize and strengthen the Naira. The central bank was widely reported by the mainstream media that the Naira is seriously undervalued. The bank has the responsibility to peg the rate of exchange at a value which it considers to be fair and realistic. Moreover, allowing market forces alone to determine the rate without the invisible hands of the government may be highly problematic, as we are beginning to see it in both long and short term. The nation is passing through a period of rapid change, and the economy is undergoing major structural reforms with a view of making it resilient and responsive to the needs of the nation. The outcomes will certainly place the country on a path of sustained growth and development. Now, Naira has gained against the dollar. We have the Naira appreciating from 1,595 to 1,400 Naira to a dollar. The policies of the president of this administration is, however, working, knowing fully well that floating the Naira and the removal of subsidy has long-term effects on the economy and also some other elements that will sabotage the efforts of the government has been put on its or their toes. Nigerians hope that this trend continues and will return to the status quo whereby the price of goods and services on the streets will commensurate with the change in the Naira dollar relationship.